Trade limitless on HMX, the next-gen decentralized perpetual exchange. Trade crypto, FX, commodities with up to 1000x leverage on the Arbitrum network. Benefit from low fees, multi-asset collateral support, and cross-margin flexibility. Check them out.
From meme to utility, Floki has it all. NFT metaverse game called Valhalla. Floki University, DeFi, charity, and shopping. Floki is governed by the people, with the people. Floki, together, there is no stopping us.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is Adrian Zduchik, CMT. Welcome to, to the second day and actually one of the closing sessions out there for the second day of our Free Trading Congress, the 5th edition. Time flies super fast. And every time there is a big event, a big happening, the man, the legend, my good friend Douglas Boneparth is there because this guy knows what's good. This guy knows what it actually means to think like a professional in anything crypto related and anything wealth management related, because he is the man, he's the legend. And without further ado, Doug Boneparth is our today guest. Doug, how is it going, my friend?
It is going great today. Seriously, today's a really good day. I feel like we're getting some nice energy here in the very end of the year before the holiday time. So you love to see it. Nothing like some real bullish activity across the board to make people feel good. Not really down with the bears, man. You know, I don't get it. Everyone's entitled to their own view, but I'll stay bullish.
That's it. We were just finished talking, to Jeff Hirsch. You know Jeff, by the way. You happen to know Jeff Hirsch?
Yeah, I happen to know him. I don't know the last time we brushed shoulders, but yeah, he's a familiar.
I think you guys are neighbors to an extent.
Yeah.
Right. That's pretty awesome. So, what he said is the long and strong. Right? Are you long and strong?
As strong as it comes. I mean, again, like how can you not? Can you just imagine being like bearish about the long-term future here? It's not a world I want to live in. And you got guys like Warren Buffett who say this, for decades upon decades and upon decades. You don't need me fanboying him or reiterating it too much. But yeah, I mean, I have little kids. I want them to live in a world that is better than the one we have. There's a lot of headwinds on that one there, but nonetheless, bullish. Bullish about a lot. Technology gets better. Longevity gets better. We live in a time where child birth rates are at all-time lows. How do you not love the world we live in? It does cut both ways, right? We see overstimulation of technology. Look, I'm an older millennial, the only geriatric millennial represent, and one of the reasons I'm so fond of my generation, other than my bias, is simply because we have an appreciation for a non-digital world, our childhood, and then a digital world. The later parts, or somewhere in the later parts of our childhood, we got to experience that. So we have appreciation on both sides, and I love that about us. But that's neither here or there.
Oh man, there's so much more for everybody who's just tuning in. Again, we are talking to Doug Boneparth, my good friend, and we're gonna have a session, like a proper good session, rundown over the crypto and wealth management, in order to help you think like a professional about about crypto, right? This is a Wild West.
Yeah.
This has been a Wild West. Bitcoin is right now, if I'm not mistaken, what's it going to be? 3.5% to the downside. It's probably, what's kind of like cutting people out on the over leverage side, left and right, which is pretty crazy, because if you apply leverage without the proper skill and education, you're going to get wrecked. And this is as easy as it goes. And Doug is here to talk to us again. If you will, because there are a lot of newcomers, right? What you and I kind of like align is, you mentioned that there's a lot of bullishness, there are a lot of bullish factors, there's a lot of upside, kind of like a developing potential in everywhere we go, anything we touch. So there are a lot of newcomers in this space, man. There are a lot of crypto newcomers that interest is getting back. So if you were to run a little bit of a background, for yourself, for what's it gonna be for crypto and wealth on your side?
Yeah, I'll wrap it all into one. It is a very interesting intersection of both traditional wealth management with a youthful spin, but also how did crypto get involved in this? It's not something you typically hear out of your mainstay financial advisors, although I think that's radically changed from just 4 or 5 years ago and will continue to change with a lot of what we're going to talk about today, spot Bitcoin ETF and tools that, advisors can use to give their clients exposure, give retail investors exposure to the space. So my background is grew up the Sun. I'm a certified financial planner. So I've been around wealth management practically my entire life. I've been licensed or actually working in the space for 19 years. So, the only way you can be 19 and get that start is when you have the good fortune and privilege of, working in the family business here. And that didn't really work out all too well many years after getting my start. I wanted to be in New York City, and I moved here in 2008, October, just to watch it all kind of implode, if you will. So anyone old enough to remember where they were, roughly, October 08 to March 2009, you saw the worst, right? Outside of the Great Depression. So that really shaped and molded me. Ironically, right? That's where Bitcoin is born out of, right? The Occupy Wall Street movement. That was literally happening around the corner from this office right here in Zuccotti Park, down with the bankers, and virtually no one went to jail and everyone got fined. And, that anger led to decentralized finance. So, I show up in New York City, just at the time of the birth of, and my birthday, October 31st, that's when the Bitcoin white paper came out. Hey, what do you know about that?
Go.
Yeah, no, that has nothing really to do with anything other than just a coincidence.
Happy birthday. Thank you, everybody.
Yes, thank you. That was not too long ago. Well, it was a quiet one because 40 is up next, and I don't want to think about it. So, that's the background on wealth management. I've been doing this a very long time, and I guess my claim to fame is one of the first advisors to really focus on millennials. I watched, my peers get neglected from 08 and, through the recession. I watched my wife graduate law school with hundreds of thousands of dollars in student loan debt. I went to business school, more debt. So this notion of, wow, what a debt-laden generation around this promise that our educations would pave the way kind of crumbled, in the wake of 2008. So that was my calling card. This is where I decided I'm going to focus on us and grow together, because I really did feel we would dig our way out of that hole and, achieve very long and bullish on millennials who have that appreciation on both sides, of the generational spectrum here. Shout out to Gen Z and Gen X too. You guys ain't so bad. But that's how this firm started, Bonafide Wealth. It's my own firm, completely independent, and primarily works with your 28 to 42-year-olds who are, making things happen. Now, crypto came into play when a buddy of mine called me up, 2013, just got back from my honeymoon, said, I'm hearing words I've never heard before, blockchain, Bitcoin, one of them, hash rates, miners. I'm like, what are you talking about, bro? It sounds like you want some money. He's like, yeah, we're gonna go buy a Bitcoin miner, 2 terahash miner for those interested. That can't do anything today, but back in 2014, you could pluck some coins if you pooled your resources together, and we did. I was limited partner. He had fun setting it up. There was a point where we could have sold the contract to the miner for more than we bought it for and just go buy Bitcoin, and we would have probably had a lot more Bitcoin than had we actually mined it. But again, when you're not the general partner of the operation here, you don't get to make those calls. I could tell my buddy really wanted to do it and learn from it. And from 2013 to 14, became quite knowledgeable, at least about what it was, read the white paper, actually did mining. So it wasn't just reading, it was doing, right? It was exposure to digital wallets, it was exposure to trusting trustless systems. And this is before all y'all heard about it. Maybe Adrian knew what was up back then, but for most people, completely oblivious to what this was. And Thanksgiving 2017, Bitcoin $20,000, then your grandmother knew what it was. How many drawdowns from that point to today, that are 85%. So, it's that classic thing. Oh man, I wish I had Amazon or Apple back in the day. Yeah, you would have had to survive, at least 3 brutal 80-90+% drawdowns to be holding that stock today. Think about with Bitcoin. I've lost count, of how many epic drawdowns of 40, 50, 70, 80, 90% that there's been. I mean, we can go back to Mount Gox. So deeply entrenched in the narrative, specifically of Bitcoin, fully participated in the NFT revolution, and familiarized myself with Ethereum as well. To be honest, I didn't really, I hold some Litecoin, some Polkadot, just because, we're talking, nothing compared to what,
for the culture.
Yeah, that was for the culture. The NFT stuff was super fun, just very misdirected, owning a pixelated trout is cool for a little while, and then really finding the utility there. It'll be back. But yeah, 12 million ETH rocks. I don't know. But still got some cool ones. Still got my cryptodes for anyone holding on to their JPEGs. So that's the history on it. And now you fold it in. A lot of talking here, but you fold it into wealth management, and we come from don't talk. Any compliance office 5 years ago would say don't talk about this. To okay, you can offer unsolicited like grayscale Bitcoin trust if a client's asking for it. My whole thing was, well, I know a lot about this and I have the ability to create thought leadership around it. And then, prospects start coming in who've made significant money, in crypto, and they want to know what to do. And you have to be able to educate, right? How does that position relate to their financial goals? How do they diversify if they have too much concentration? What are the tax So you get a lot of education around it. And you need someone who understands just how wealth management works, but in the context of crypto, because that's a big piece of now people's portfolios, or they want to educate themselves to get exposure. All of those things, brings us here to present day. And what do we got? We're on the dawn of a spot Bitcoin ETF. Nothing could scream more, widespread adoption than I think it's a watershed moment. This coupled with a happening. Oh my God, we'll see. I think comically and ironically, we've been disappointed by previous events. Oh, it's uncorrelated. Always correlated. We saw some uncorrelation before. It's been doing the things it hasn't been doing the things we thought it would do. Other than price go up, and down quite a bit. And now we might have that opportunity with a new watershed moment. Coming up around the corner, and I'm super. How can you? I'm really struggling to find a bear case specifically for Bitcoin.
I know, right?
It's next to impossible, and I'm not trying. And I am a very realistic. I'm not a maxi. I'm very realistic. If you ask me my view of Bitcoin, I think there's room for a digital store of value. I'm done. Period. Right? Like, I'm sure we can do more. But digital store of value, we got shiny rocks and gold. We got fiat monetary systems that are they're all constructs, guys. I want my digital construct as well. And you look at shiny rock market of gold bugs, your gold market of 10 trillion, and Bitcoin once was over $1 trillion. How do you not see the potential of that? What do you want to run? What do you want to run around with? A sack of gold, a third-party bank? I mean, I'm in favor of all of it, right? I'm not like down with fiat, down with gold, down up with crypto. No, there's room for it, and we're seeing institutions now make that room, and that's massive.
That's massive. I agree. And you're talking about Bitcoin and having room to actually grow. And the truth is, it's kind of like made itself this room for growth, right? It's kind of like just squeezed in, and it just and it's just excavated.
There's nothing you can, but that's because there's nothing you can do about it. You're right. You created something that up until this point, there's no stopping it. You can't. It's math, right? You can't. It's orderly. There's nothing you can do. So, it was interesting to me see this thing that was born out of the wake of the recession to be the anti-traditional finance mechanism, now being almost fully embraced, soon to be fully embraced by the very institutions, was born to, you could take that as can't beat them, join them mentality. You could take that as, hey, we're going to manipulate this market too, and that's one end of it. Well, if that's the case, go take a look at when GLD formed and what happened in the wake of that. Go look at the 7 or 8 years after GLD came out for the price of gold. Guys, this ain't a recommendation. Nothing I'm saying here is a recommendation. This is go look at that. If you look at the lawsuits that JP Morgan was caught up in, for manipulating that commodity. I mean, we're talking billions of dollars in settlement here. They front run that thing, So whether you want to take a cynical view of it like that, or you view this as the proliferation of the digital currency and its market cap goes to 10, 20, 30 trillion, wherever you think it's going to land, everyone, you should have a price target in mind. Whichever side you take, this is proving the point. Like you got to be bullish here. The only thing that would be really bearish for is it. Yes, I guess someone comes out of the dark, truly is Satoshi Nakamoto, and points his finger at all of you, laughs, and runs off with the bag. And like, Nah, I don't think so.
That's right. That's about right. So speaking of the millennials, I subscribe myself to the category, for
Yeah.
so many reasons, right? What is striking through is this. There is a whole way of a different thinking, right? And just like you say, we're living in this, at this edge of kind of like discovering, this technology that is coming in, and it's coming in very fast. And like, right now we are living in the era of ChatGPT. Do you use ChatGPT, for instance? Do you use AI tools?
Yeah, so stuff like this comes out, I'll be an early adopter and dive right into it. But as amazing as AI is going to be and how deflationary that will be on society, super early innings, right? I've been having more fun creating image generation than probably prompting. It's not a great tool as of this moment for what I do professionally, right? Like I once had it put together a diversified portfolio of like ETFs. I gave it some criteria, and I think like when you added up the allocation, it was like 110%. So not great. It got close. I was actually amazed with how close it was given the prompt, and I could try that again. It's probably going to give me a better result. But yeah, AI for writing, right? I think has been very helpful. Do write a newsletter, and if I'm looking for subtitles, titles, if I'm looking to smooth out language or create better transitions, or just proofread, that's been very valuable. I'm super excited for it, but no, I'm not in Chat GPT every day. But if I want to go create a little fantasy world, you can go do some Dolly image generation. I think that Midjourney is mind blowing. So that stuff shows you where we're going.
Yeah, that makes sense, right? I asked because, well, so many people at the first time, kind of like there was a whole blow up, the app, came up, for the Chat GPT, the Midjourney, ever since the OpenAI kind of like, it's just went a little bit viral, just a couple of months ago.
Yeah, everyone got
Yes.
massive. Yeah, that was like Bitcoin, like when Bitcoin blew up in 2017 because the price went up and ChatGPT came out and people were showing crazy prompts and what it can do. Same kind of effect here. It's very very similar, trajectory.
Similar, right?
Yeah, very.
Quite similar. And the reason I'm saying this is because so many of the people, of course, naturally would say and just would reach out to ChatGPT and ask, basically, hey, give me a money making strategy that doesn't lose, for instance, right?
Bad
You know what I'm
prompt.
saying?
Yeah.
Of course, either it's gonna fine tune or just not gonna find anything, right? As a matter of fact. So speaking, of on the Bitcoin on the retail side, right? What kind of because you're running this newsletter, right? What is it called?
Yeah, so we got a couple of them. The one I'm writing right now is with my wife called the Joint Account, and I'll put it in the comments here.
Yeah,
It's
please.
around couples and relationships and money. So we're exploring the power dynamics that exist between, significant others and in the role of money. Clearly, this is a very big thing in relationships, right? 52% of relationships don't work out because of money, and not scarcity. You'd think it's like, oh, there's not enough money, let's fight about that. It's actually about the dynamics and the control and the power and the leverage and being seen. That's what creates the friction. So when you can't communicate about that, you got some problems.
Yeah. So speaking of which, right? How often does the topic of Bitcoin itself kind of like appear? Like, how often do you talk about
Just show
Bitcoin
up and really
with a couple?
it'd be a very specific conversation, right? With couples that have built, and I see this in practice more than anything. I do have clients who've built significant significant net worth and wealth around crypto, or either being early adopters. No one's really shown up saying, "Hey, I've traded this thing and made a ton of money." Sure, I'll find that in practice at some point. It's mostly, "Hey, we were early adopters, and made a good bet here. So what do we do now?" However, not only is this newsletter cool, but it's leading up to a book on the topic, which you'll all hear about at some point in the future. Books take a while to write, but
What's it gonna be? What's it gonna be named? What's the
it's called The
title?
Merge, and that
The
specifically
merge.
the merge. So what happens when you merge two, money lives together, two identities around money together? How do you facilitate that conversation? How do you see your partner? How do you listen and understand to how they shape their views around money? Because again, this is an inescapable part of people's lives, let alone a couple's lives. Certainly when kids get involved, it only gets crazier and more dynamic. But we're going to have an interview, and by the way, guys, we're looking for sources for this book. You can go to the newsletter, find out how to contribute, but particularly around crypto, we want stories that involve couples and money, particularly around crypto. There will be, I think that probably be some of the coolest stories in the book. So if you're interested in being a source and contributing to the book, go check out the newsletter, and at the bottom you'll see the email address. It's themergebook@gmail.com.
Sign me up, man.
Yeah,
sign me up. I want in.
That's good.
Not only I need to read
we will be interviewing you for sure.
Yes. Now we've got a social proof for that. I mean, we definitely listen. I love there's so much, such a shock, when it comes to anything crypto related, because at first, there's always a lot of disbelief, right? No one kind of like believes, because the money kind of like coming fast in crypto. It can be one day that can turn your life around, basically, for so many other people up there. It comes and goes, right? All this wealth, and every single event of this kind of like just transpires into a lot of shock, which, just like you mentioned, can actually impact what's happening in the relationship in a way, right? So do you have any kind of like a story that you always refer to when speaking of that? The Caple story.
A couple story, particularly around crypto, or just in general?
The one that kind of like just stuck in your memory so much regarding the newsletter and the book.
It's a good question. So part of writing this book is the need to interview somewhere between 100 and 200 couples and experts, from marriage counselors, psychologists, bankruptcy attorneys, divorce lawyers. That's a good chunk, but the largest chunk, hands down, is going to be couples. And I think we've cracked double digits just last week. So we've started doing our interview process over the last 2 to 3 weeks, and have 10 stories there. I'm not going to ruin some good ones for the book. But what we're discovering, we're catching people at particularly interesting times in their lives, like having just gotten married and they're just having these conversations around money, or they're just discovering what their joint money identities are. And, to be able to hear that formulate in real time, and the story and what prompted that is proving to be some of the more interesting things. We're really trying to cast a wide net, and just to give you some examples of like where identities are formed, like when you get or the duality of where couples can be together. What happens, for example, look at these balloons. I don't know how this is happening, but sure enough, what you do.
That wasn't me. I like it though. Make it again. Do it again.
We'll take it. What happens if I just do a thumbs up? Well, look at that. There it is.
What the hell, bro? I didn't know it actually does it.
I don't know how this is. This has been happening a while now on my computer. I'll have to figure out what's it.
It doesn't do it for me. You're the special one. Hold on.
Give me some fireworks or something. I don't know. All right, moving on. So we got couples kind of sharing up with us these dynamics, but we're looking for, like, when your origins are like, hey, you like classic one would be like grew up poor versus a partner who grew up of means, right? Or both are just absolute power couple, like high flying, at their jobs, and one won't yield, their ambitions for the other to either start families or create a better, work-life balance between the two. What happens when you bring in a child from another marriage, or it is a second or third marriage, and you're bringing what happens when one has issues with debt? You're really asking people to listen to their partner about how they got into the way that they got when it comes to their relationship with money, so you can create this joint relationship together. This isn't a prescription book. Like, we're not telling you, all right, so, you need to have a joint checking account, and then you need to have a savings account. That you got to kind of give some prescription there. But we want people to be able to hand to their partner the book and be like, look, this is us. Like, this is what we're struggling with, or we're that. Like, read this, and give them tools. People need to be equipped with tools of how to actually communicate and collaborate, and consistently have a process in place to discuss money.
That's right. That's about right. I mean, if you, what you've got, a lot of people basically coming into your office, right? And they keep asking you all those questions. What sort of questions what is the most frequently asked question that you get in regards to crypto, and
Yeah.
investment that you get?
Yeah, I think people just want to know the long-term view I have, where they're learning to figure out what this is about. And that's been happening more and more. Like if you asked me 5 years ago how many clients, prospects, um, or the like that either had exposure, wanted to learn more, or wanted to get exposure, I would say maybe 1 in 10, right, would come in or was on the books and wanted to learn more. That's like 5, 6 years ago. In the last 3 years, through COVID, hype cycle, meme stonks, and crypto soaring, that easily turned into 1 in 4. And I feel like that hasn't actually gone down, despite our last winter in crypto, which seems like a short winter, right? It was like a year, I don't know.
It was a year.
They
Yeah.
get shorter and shorter in my mind. I guess like when you're already numb and frostbitten from so many winters, like you just don't pay attention anymore. But if that was your first, that was an epic drawdown, right? Watching almost $60,000 go sub 20 was, oof, yeah. So it'd make anyone feel a little bearish about the whole thing here. But if you've been doing that 3 or 4 times and not, so I think it's education, and it will always be education. I think when we're in our echo chamber, here we have people listening who are informed. Generally, you and I know quite a bit. There's less education requirement, and sometimes I think we fool ourselves into believing like everyone knows what this is about. No, we're nowhere near any kind of mass adoption. Again, spot Bitcoin ETF really giving people, now it's not going to show them trusting trustless systems. It's not going to expose them to self-custody. It's not going to expose them to like the real deal. It's just giving them exposure to the price action, of that. But I'll take it, selfishly, I'll take it because I want obviously price to go up. But not everyone's down with that. And I think one of the biggest points I can make here is like for all the maximalists and zealots and dare I say cultists around crypto, slow down, Maurice, right? Like we have to understand by the way, I'll play into what you want, which is you want the mass adoption and proliferation of crypto, or if it's just Bitcoin. And I can't think of anything that's going to help you get there, right, than giving retail investors access to the market in a way that they want to access it, right?
Which is how? Which is what?
In a brokerage account with an ETF. For now, like I have clients who want exposure, and they go about it in a way that I never would, right? And they, in an unsolicited way, will go by MicroStrategy. They won't even buy Grayscale Bitcoin Trust. They'll go buy MicroStrategy and play a derivative. Now, that's pretty much buying Bitcoin. I mean, you look at the balance sheet, you see what you're buying here. But again, you're not doing and you're buying that what? In your brokerage account, right? Same with Grayscale. And now you're about to do that. I mean, when this spot Bitcoin ETF comes out, and it will either be Grayscale or BlackRock on the first one, I think it should go to Grayscale because look at their legal bill and fighting the fight to, beat
a long time.
Yeah, they've been really doing the work there, but BlackRock is BlackRock. Their, influence is absolutely massive. So I wouldn't be surprised, we'll see who gets it first, maybe at the same time. We'll see. But when spot, that's how most people, are gonna, if you like, remember when the futures Bitcoin ETF debuted? And it was this
17.
product. Yeah, nobody
PME,
wanted.
yeah, 17.
Yeah, I think it was Wisdom Trees. It wasn't. No, it was.
Sorry, hold on. So you mean hold on. I've got a whole timeline. So you mean the first one?
No, it was Wisdom Trees Futures ETF. I think it was last year.
Jeez, hold on. Probably, yeah.
So this thing comes out, and it is the biggest debut. It's not even what it's not what people wanted. Like nobody like, great, Bitcoin's up 10%. My futures Bitcoin ETF is up 2. Like, or maybe,
I know what you mean. Okay.
Or maybe even down. It's like, that's not what people wanted. So this thing comes out, and it is single-handedly the largest debut of an ETF in history. the amount of money that piled into the instrument that nobody wanted to get exposure to like Bitcoin in all the wrong ways, had the biggest debut. Can you imagine what's about to happen, when a spot Bitcoin ETF comes out? There's no question in my mind, this is going to be the biggest debut of an ETF in history. And I'm curious as to what will ever rival that after that. I mean, we're all watching the birth of an asset class.
Oh man.
I guess, gold was always an asset class. It was just they packaged it in an ETF. This is the birth of an asset class, guys. We created, we'll go with commodity. We've created a commodity. The only other way you could have done that is dig into the earth and find a mineral no one's discovered before. And
that's a good comparison.
Yeah, and that's not going to happen. I mean, it's not going to happen. It'd have to be some alien spacecraft you found down there to find, some mineral you've never found before.
Which is not so uncertain anymore, right?
Yeah, come on. By the way, sidebar. Can we get with the aliens already? Can we get, no, enough's enough. Like, I think we can handle it. I'm not going to lose my, we know. Show us the aliens already. Let's get a move. Might bring world peace.
Bro, I've already seen so many memes. Jesus Christ! You should guys see the quality of the memes that Doug posts all days on Twitter. This is
the one when the alien comes. Aren't you surprised? And the guy's like, I got a lot going on right now.
Immaculate content, guys. Listen. Speaking of Doug's account, make sure you actually follow Doug's account, right? And you're gonna find him at Doug Boneparth. I think there was an actual. Right in the screens you're actually seeing and looking at the very handle for Twitter. There's so much that actually there's such a likable content that actually just posts every single day, and it is for millennials, and which is why it goes so well. And one last point about the aliens, right? If they come in and search, for any slightest, sign of intelligence or something, show them Bitcoin, right? Maybe it's actually, maybe it's gonna come in a whole new brand, whole new
what if we find
community of buyers?
What if we find out that they've been trading Bitcoin for 100 years and it's just new. It's just new to us, right?
Yeah.
And they don't even call it that,
They call it funny internet magical money, right?
Yeah, what they did call it space, guys, we literally called it space money.
Space. That's pretty much it. So again, you've obviously, got a lot of experience up there, and you're speaking with all those people, who come on with the willingness to learn more, right? Because let's be honest, what is obvious to you and me, let's say, what is obvious to to those who have been in this industry for a lot of years, it's not obvious to everybody else outside, because we naturally, as a people, we search for those easy solutions, for those easy questions, right? When we ask, we don't have this kind of like a critical thinking, let's say, ability that we're gonna just check all the data, check all the historical patterns, check the daily average returns, go search for the books and learn all this stuff. The only question we're gonna have in our mind is it going up or down, right? So what's it gonna be? What's next? What's it gonna be next year? How's it gonna look like? So those are very simple questions that, of course, entail a lot of complexity. So what is it that you actually kind of like advise to those people? Like, what is your of course not financial advice, what is your like a recommendation to pay more attention to in terms of allocation?
So the easiest way to talk about it in a compliant way is like, how do we educate, right? How do we educate clients on what this is all about and how to inform themselves? And one of the things I'm a big proponent of, without putting big dollars or really anything at risk here, you can go buy $1 or $5 worth of any coin you want, including Bitcoin. You can do it on mainstay exchanges that are still around and didn't commit massive amounts of fraud and didn't blow up and lose everyone their money. That's a whole other story. Shout out Sam. From Coinbase to Gemini, as two big ones here. Feel free to throw out anyone you know is legit and stable. Go get the experience, right? Like learning to trust the trustless system, interacting with a digital wallet. Like, I think this will all become much more native stuff when you hold, when you're on your phone and you're moving, crypto from one person to the next. It'll probably feel just like it should feel like what you're doing today. And I feel like, with NFTs and MetaMask and Ethereum and even crypto, that's just one thing that's so blatantly obvious to me as what not that they're getting it wrong. It's just that's where the tool set is at today. It's not native. Like, you can't ask a retail investor who literally just figured out or is just getting comfortable with a market order for a singular stock to then, go on link their bank account to a centralized exchange to go buy that coin, then transfer that coin to a digital wallet elsewhere, and then maybe put that on a ledger so that they can self-custody. You're asking way too much. Do you want people to click once, or do you want them to click 10 times to get to the result that you want? It's as simple as that. And as long as it's 10 clicks and not 1 to 2, maybe even 3, there's an adoption problem. So giving people exposure to these processes without feeling like they're making a big bet or they have a lot of financial assets at risk or their money's at risk, go set up that account. Go transfer $5. Go buy a coin, and see what that's like. This is not a recommendation on this is a recommendation to learn. Right? This is a recommendation to become native to something. Why? And you got to ask yourself, why even do this? Because I feel you're going to have to do something like this in the future. You're going to be interacting with private and public blockchains from major corporations, buying physical goods that are getting identified and authenticated through blockchains, through issuing insurance policies and attaching riders and amendments to contracts and keeping track of that using blockchains and tokens. It's going to be important. And what worst case, I'm wrong, and you spend some of your time messing with something that never really turned out to be something you were going to deal with in your life. Okay, sorry about that. You lost a few hours, but it was cool. Hopefully it was cool, and you learned. It's hard for me to think you won, but you learned something. Best case, you learn how to do this, and it's very relevant and will have a very big impact on your life, and you know about it and can do it before others can. Now, to me, that's called an edge. Not just for that could be an investment edge, that could be an edge in life, and just in how you operate, your household. So sounds to me like a lot of upside. Seems asymmetric, right?
So you're right. So they get the experience, right?
Yeah, they get the experience.
They get the experience. So what's next?
Lesson.
They get the experience. What's next? What do you give them next?
So after they get that experience, they can, make a conclusion or start to think about whether or not it's worth investing their capital into that, right? That's the next logical step here, and how they want to do that, and position size. And it's my job then to educate, okay, you want to make a decision to invest, how, and by the way, the ETF opens the door to registered investment advisors like me. It's pretty much the SEC, is an oversimplification of it, saying green light. If it can go in a brokerage account in an ETF wrapper, advisors can make that recommendation. Now, their compliance office may have something to say about that, but by and large, regulator saying, hey, here's a product, and you can now advise around that, assuming your compliance office, allows that. So the next logical step is investing, right? And understanding how that investment relates to one's financial plan, goals, and overall portfolio. One of my favorite charts is what happens when you add anywhere from 1 to 5% Bitcoin to a classic 80-20 risk adjusted portfolio, and you back test that over 10 years. I mean, even the 1%, is so alpha generating. It's not even funny. Now, obviously, past returns are not indicative of future results, but standard disclosure aside, it's very compelling. And when I talk to clients and I say, all right, they ask me, how do I think about the growth potential of something like Bitcoin? And you can create a good analogy like, all right, so maybe digital gold is the most simplified version of what this asset class is. Do you believe that this is half as good? There it is again. Just as good, or a multiple as good as gold, because that can help you identify what your price target is going to be when there's potentially more of a steady state price around Bitcoin. So, if you're saying gold's a $10 trillion market cap and you believe Bitcoin is as good as it, just as good, like that's when we talked about making room for a digital store of value. If you say, hey, it should be at least, what the shiny rock is, that's 10 trillion. And you're at 700 billion today.
That's
Do
right.
the math.
700.
Do the math. You think it's double? Do the math. You're hundreds of thousands. Where are we at? We're like 600,000 to 1.2 million per coin. These are logic games to me, right? And only time will tell if the logic pans out to be true, or if it was really speculation all along, and hence the inherent risk, in this. So, guys, in case you haven't figured out, nothing I'm saying here is certain. It is all, just trying to figure out how to think about it. So you can take that and do this way of thinking with a client and help them understand, in conjunction with their planning and their overall portfolio, what they want to do next. And all you've done is educate, show the data, help them evaluate through the emotional side of it. They can make, any good financial advisor is going to help clients make the best decisions for themselves. So that's our job, and that's how you do that.
That makes a lot of sense. And speaking, by the way, of all this experience, right? You guys have an excellent opportunity to ask our experts some questions. So if you're gonna have some questions to be asked and to be answered by Doug Boneparth today, make sure you drop them actually in the comment section. Drop them with a comment. Comment this. If you're watching that on YouTube, if you're watching that on Twitter, that's it. AMA, ask me anything, right? So we're gonna have some couple of minutes toward the end of the show, and having again about 10-15 minutes maybe to before we wrap.
Yeah.
Speaking of this, 1 or 5% addition, to the classical, portfolio, is there like again, I imagine I may be wrong. I imagine most of it people would search for the easiest solution, right? So the easiest solution is what I would say that many people just DCA, dollar cost average, which is a solution on its own. However, it doesn't really check out well, probably in the bear markets too much, right? Because you would DCA on top and just go along with the Bitcoin down to the drain, like 90-80%, like you mentioned so many times. Still, what's it going to be like the simplest solution that you kind of like speak about with your clients, right, who come to Bonafide Wealth?
Yeah, I mean that's what's interesting. Like if they're asking me, like, right, there's a pun intended, there's a hard fork there, right? Because there's what I know, like I have my Bitcoin on a ledger, like a good boy, right? Self-custody. I own how I believe this should go, right? This is the ethos of decentralized finance, to take that responsibility to yourself. Get it off the centralized exchanges. And then you have clients who are like, I don't want to do that, right? So they're limited. So me asking someone, or me suggesting or educating someone around, well, if you're going to do this, do it this way, and then to be told, no, I don't want to do that, forces you to say, well, here's the other ways to consider this. You might want to buy a Bitcoin trust. We're going to have the ETF. And I guess you could do derivatives of that, right? Like your micro strategies of the world, and help them figure out what's going to be their way to do it. It doesn't matter if I agree or disagree with that form of ownership. I have to agree with what makes sense for them.
Okay. So again, I'm gonna bother you with some questions, right? Some of them are still stuck in my mind. So when all those people, come to you, right? When you speak with those people, when you speak with millennials, again, there is this search for simplicity. There is this, kind of like feeling a little bit tech savvy, but maybe not too tech savvy, just like you said, because there are 20 different steps in order, where on every step you can lose everything that you own basically with crypto, right? And the self-custody up there.
Yeah.
So
there's no 1-800 Bitcoin, customer support number.
That oh man, Jesus! And even if there is, it's fake. Don't fall for it. Don't fall for it. So, what's the actual like? Is that the DCA that most of the people get, or like?
Yeah.
What's the golden solution that you kind of like try to inspire people with? I'm just
Yeah,
trying to understand that.
my colleague Nick Majuli writes a book called writes a great blog of dollars and data, and he also has a great book called Just Keep Buying. And one of the chapters is not even God can beat dollar cost averaging. Yet, statistically, and he frames it very well, like lump sum contributions, and we're talking any asset class here, to risk on asset classes like S&P 500 or Bitcoin in this case. Very rarely will a DCA strategy beat out just a lump sum contribution and holding over the very long term, right? Not blow it out of the water, but a decent margin worth taking note of. It might have been a percent, give or take, and on an annualized return basis is significant. So take that data for what you will, and I think that pairs nicely with Bitcoin, right? Because if it's still early days and you see this really bullish upside here, and you're like, you know what? On one hand, what you don't want is to be averaging in a sum of money, and you're standing right here at the precipice of maybe 1 to 2 watershed moments. And I don't know what it is about the weekends and like Friday nights into Saturday when we see some like face melting melt ups. But you don't want to be like, man, I've been averaging X amount of dollars over 12 months when all the action happened in the first 3, right? So again, very difficult for me to say, because what are we talking about? Are we talking about fresh cash that's being allocated into the market, in which I do love using dollar cost average strategies? Or are we talking about taking an existing portfolio and reallocating it and rebalancing it to an exposure to Bitcoin, in which case there's your lump sum, right? $100,000 portfolio, 5% allocation, it brings you to a nice $5,000 slug right into the asset, versus, hey, I have $100,000 to invest over a 12-month period of time. Get my math right. It's 80, 83, 33 repetitive, right? 6, 3, I don't know. It doesn't matter. And then you have 5% of that. So, every month you're doing $400 and change, it's going to take you 12 and a half months to get that $5,000, just $5,000. Scale it up, scale it down. Whether it's a $50,000 portfolio or $5 million portfolio. This is all relevant to someone. So maybe both. It's never binary too. But it also, again, comes back to your philosophy about deploying fresh cash. Are you going to do that lump sum? And by the way, if you do any kind of lump sum thing, this requires you to stick to your strategy. Like, nobody likes the feeling of a lump sum contribution to an asset the next day, let's say a massive correction. Like let's say it was a bad timing analysis, right? Your bad timing moment was just god awful. Like you want to puke, on yourself. Not, undisciplined or investors are going to panic. They're going to sell. They're going to lock in that loss, never do it again, and just double down on being a terrible investor. The other side is that happens. Shitty timing, whoops, bad timing here. And it doesn't change my conviction, and it doesn't change my view. Like, this will bear out over the long term, and I'll hold. And you know what? I got fresh cash coming in too. I'll average that down, systematically. I mean, that's the excellent investor, right? So there you go. Those are the two extremes there. Be more like, that's if you're doing the lump sum. And then, props to the person that's like, you know what? I want the psychological aid of dollar cost averaging. I'm okay with a melt up because I'm early, and I'll get there. And if I'm buying all the way up, by the way, if we're talking Bitcoin, I want to see a straight line, but come on, guys. The minute you start thinking everything's up and to the right is the first step into successfully setting yourself up for disappointment.
Yeah.
Go look at 08 and real estate, and you'll find out how bad it can get if you really think things just go up and to the right all the time.
Yeah, right. So DCA, I perfectly agree, Doug, that the DCA is again the very kind of like it's the most simplistic solution, right? That so many people probably would appreciate if they, I've got a question in the other chat from a guy saying, that he's got 2 kids, 9 to 5, he doesn't have much time to trade, right? So what's he gonna do? Yeah, you can actually answer that question, right? Because that's an actual question from another chat. What would you say? Like 9 to 5, two kids, right? And as I read, it's gonna be like, what's the solution for such a busy guy?
Automate everything as much as humanly possible. The more you can get to spending time doing the things that you love to do, and want to do, um, the better off you're going to be, the happier you're going to be. I think life's about trying to achieve happiness here. And I haven't really heard from too many people like, what makes me happy, is monitoring my portfolio all the time. Now, professional traders aside, you know, that's your that's your livelihood. You can just because it's your livelihood doesn't mean and your job doesn't mean you love it. You could hate it too. But for most people who have lives that they're trying to fulfill with friends and family and things that they love to do, automate it. Also that's going to get the emotional process. I mean, we're humans, right? We were not all that long ago. The daily mission was to not have a saber-toothed tiger eat you, and survive the day. Like how many humans were just like, oh, a mushroom, I'll eat that. Dead. It's how you learned. Everyone in the tribe's like, hey, you see those spotted mushrooms? Yeah, don't eat that. Bill died from that. Like, don't be like Bill. So now instead of that, we get to go to a playground with our kids or go check out some cool rock climbing thing and not have to worry. That's a long way of saying not have to worry about timing in that. Just set it up, automate it, get it going. And the best investor is the disciplined and consistent investor every time. The sexier you get, this is my own investment philosophy, the sexier you try and get as a retail investor by picking and poking and prodding things, yeah, your performance is going to go that way. The more you can stick to a strategy, the more you can do it with conviction and consistency and do the things you love to do. That's when our friend compounding comes into place, and you'll like what you see.
That makes a lot of sense, right? So again, I mean, this is I think you and I agree that this is a good time to be alive, just like we say, right? This is a good time to be long and strong, not really short and weak. Long and strong is probably the dominant tendency that we're gonna see, especially after the halving. And predictions aside, there's the very good thing about the DCA, the dollar cost averaging approach. It's not only simplistic, right? It's very kind of like mechanical, although you can automate that easily, right? So you don't kind of like get too attached. And regardless of what happens, you just chip in, regardless of the price of the Bitcoin, regardless of the price of the asset. It is very simplistic. It takes away all the, if you will, emotional baggage of trying to time the entries and trying to just analyze and predict stuff, right? That so many people cannot really bear down so well.
Don't do it.
So
I'm a professional, and every time I try and do it, I end up worse off than had I just done what I preach. I mean, I'm human too, right? And I probably, and professionally, when I'm doing it for other people, there's no margin of error here. You got to get it right every time. So when we're averaging in for clients is fine. But when I go over to my opportunity portfolio, just a small little fraction to mess around and play, you say, oh, this guy knows a thing or two. Nope. Wrong. I can't tell you how many things I've succeeded in some. I've probably bag-holded more. And that just goes to show.
That makes sense, right? And especially the good thing, about the DCA, just to kind of like get us closer to the wrap with Doug, is that again, being a bull, or sort of doing the DCA in the bull is a good thing. It takes you in one direction, right? Of course, depending on everyone's risk preference, risk tolerance, they're going to be different, whatever strategies, discussions, for the bear market. Luckily, we just escaped the bear, 1 year long bear, just like Doug noticed rightly, and we are just kind of like enjoying ourselves. This is the time to actually just chill out. This is the time to just let yourselves join on the bandwagon, join on the rally, because the directions are clear, well. And this is such an excellent discussion that you and I have every time we meet. So if there's one final golden tip that you'd love to leave our listeners and viewers with, what's that going to be?
Yeah, just I got to go like so baseline, vanilla, foundational finance. Guys, like if you're excited about investing and you're excited specifically in the crypto space or any space for that matter, it's just like don't forget your fundamentals, right? Don't forget to have that cash reserve. Don't forget to put yourself in a position to be invested and stay invested. And that means you have liquidity to handle emergencies and opportunities, right? Being very mindful of position sizes, when you're thinking about how much of your wealth or how much of your money to be putting towards any asset class. That's critical. Make sure that you got the very important things like your estate planning, wills, healthcare. You got kids. This is goal number one. Make sure the things that are most important to you in your life are protected. Don't forget, tax planning. It sounds boring, but if you can save money on taxes or grow wealth efficiently, obviously pay attention to that. So folks that are have access to employer retirement plans or free money that goes into these plans, or the ability to provide tax shelters to even your asset or Bitcoin exposure. Keep these things in mind. Learn about these things. If you're too busy to learn about them, go find a great certified financial planner who can help you with that. There are plenty of tools, resources, people out there, education. That's key number one. But get these fundamentals into play. Know your cash flow. Know what you can afford to do. Have that layer of cash there so you can sleep well at night knowing your strategies are going to work for you, and you don't need to interrupt them because something popped up, either good or bad. It's not always, hey, I broke my femur, I can't work, I need cash. It could be business opportunity of a lifetime presented itself and I need to come up with some liquidity to take advantage of that. It cuts both ways there too. So don't forget your foundations, fundamentals, do your research, all this cliche stuff. It's so important, and I take it very seriously.
I love it. DCA for the win, especially in the bull. We are up for some good rallies ahead. And ladies and gentlemen, Doug Boneparth, my great person to look up to, for anything finance related for millennials and beyond that. Do definitely make sure you're subscribed to his newsletter. Where can we find your newsletter again?
Yes, it's called the Joint Account.
That is short?
Yep, the Joint Account over on Beehive, thejointaccount.beehive.com. Any of my social media profiles has a link tree. Will get you to everything and anything that we're up to, including that newsletter. So don't forget to follow Doug Boneparth at Doug Boneparth, all platforms, and help me grow my Instagram, because Twitter I got figured out here, but Instagram, I don't know how many algorithms I can subject my brain to, but I got to figure it out.
You're gonna crush it. Ladies and gentlemen, Doug Boneparth again. Thank you so much, Doug, for your time. You're awesome.
Thanks for having me, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.